Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Research Showcase. My name is Kinneret Gordon, and I'm the Lead Research Community Officer on the WMF research team. Our monthly showcases, are meant to recognize and share recent research on or relevant to the Wikimedia project. For those of you that are joining us now live, we welcome you to ask questions of our speakers in the chat. And during the presentation, we will make sure to monitor the channel and pass the questions on to the speaker during the Q&A. We kindly ask that all attendees follow the friendly space policies and the Universal Code of Conduct. Before we get started, just a small announcement. Due to Wikimania, we didn't have a research showcase in August, but we did announce the 13th edition of Wiki Workshop. So in case you missed it, Wiki Workshop will be held virtually on Wednesday and Thursday, March 25th and 26th, 2026. Please save the date, and we're looking forward to all your contributions and participation in the event. And with that small announcement, I'll pass it on to Leila to present today's theme and speakers.
Thank you so much, Kinneret. Hi, everyone. My name is Leila Zia. I'm the head of research at the Wikimedia Foundation, and I have the pleasure of kicking off this research showcase, taking it from Kinneret. I'm very excited to be here with you today. We're going to talk with you about Wikipedia readers and readership research. I'm joined here with my colleagues, Martin Gerlach and Mike Reisch. And the three of us are going to talk with you about some of the research and key findings that we have had in the space of Wikipedia readers and readership, and some of the ongoing work that we're doing in the research team at the foundation. And then we're going to look together to the future of this line of research. I want to emphasize that as we stand, the three of us in front of you today, there are many people who have supported us throughout the years, and we are going to be showcasing and sharing with you the learnings that we have had together on this journey. So while we are doing the more of the talking today, if you have been involved in this research, we thank you, and we hope that you see the impact of your work and the recognition of your work throughout this presentation, and thank you for that. Next slide, please. In this particular showcase, we're going to primarily focus on Wikipedia. Just some basic statistics about the project today. It has around 65 million articles in 340 active languages. The project receives around 14 million monthly edits. And perhaps more important than any other statistics, there are 400,000 editors that come to the site every month, whether registered or anonymous editors, and they contribute to Wikipedia. These editors are what make Wikipedia possible, and we are honored to focus on the project and share with you more about the readers that come to this project today. Next slide. Over time, Wikipedia has become a central piece of the knowledge and internet ecosystem. The project receives roughly 16 billion monthly page views from across the globe. Next. And the users of Wikipedia are humans, of course, who come to the site to learn knowledge, as well as machines who come to the site to extract knowledge and do other things with this knowledge in other platforms or other tools. These machines can have a variety of applications for what they take from Wikipedia and spread across the world in terms of new technologies or new forms of knowledge. Next slide, please. While Wikipedia has become, over the past quarter of a century, a central piece of the knowledge ecosystem, in 2015, we knew very little about Wikipedia readers and readership. Back then, we started a series of research focusing on some very basic questions in 2015. For example, how do readers even come to Wikipedia? What are the needs of these Wikipedia readers? Who are Wikipedia readers? What do readers read when they arrive on Wikipedia? Or what levers do we as Wikimedia movement have to affect readership and readers on the projects? And many more questions. Of course, these questions started with very simple ones and evolved over time. Next slide, please. Answering these questions required way more than what was available immediately to the research team at the Wikimedia Foundation, or even at the Wikimedia Foundation more broadly. We were fortunate to be joined by 30 formal collaborators who volunteered and worked with us over the past decade from 13 institutions and supported us in understanding better who Wikipedia readers are. Part of the showcase today is the recognition of the work of all these individuals, along with the Wikimedia research team's staff and contractors who worked with us and helped us understand better about Wikipedia readers. With this, recognizing all the work that has done over the past 10 years, I'll pass it to Martin to share with us more about what are some of the key findings we have had in the space of readers and readership research.
Thanks, Leila. Hi, everyone. I'm Martin Gerlach. I'm Senior Research Scientist in the research team. Today, I want to present some of the main insights of the research questions Leila just mentioned. Thanks to all the collaborators who contributed to the joint work. And since we only have limited amount of time, of course, I'll be only able to scratch the surface. I will skip technical details. Happy to go into detail during the Q&A, or you can look up in the corresponding publications. So, of course, Wikipedia doesn't exist in isolation, but is part of a larger online ecosystem. Thus, it's crucial to understand how do readers arrive at Wikipedia. That research is actually very challenging since it usually requires some data from other platforms, and that's very hard to obtain. Nevertheless, from some analysis of our own logs, we know that of the page views, we know that the most common way to reach Wikipedia is through external search engines. So looking at page views, roughly half of their referrers are from an external search engine. When actually considering reading sessions of users or of readers, we know that a much larger fraction, 75%, start their reading session coming from an external search engine, and then subsequent page views will have an internal referrer because they click on the blue links. And we also know that almost all, or a very large fraction of the traffic from external search engines actually means it comes from Google search. That means a lot of Wikipedia depends a lot on getting traffic from external search engines. However, that is a mutual interdependence. We have learned that Wikipedia substantially contributes to Google's success. So lack of Wikipedia links makes it a much worse search engine. And recently, we have learned that obtained similar results with experiments in collaboration with DuckDuckGo, where we found that Wikipedia is still the most common result in queries, and users explicitly look for the Wikipedia links in the search results. Leila, you're not seeing the full text of the slides?
Now I see it.
Okay. Thank you. There is a caveat in this. Of course, this landscape is changing and evolving rapidly with the availability of LLMs and AI chatbots. These results are a few years old, though those numbers reported here, we haven't seen substantial changes so far. But of course, that research questions only growing in relevance in the future. In terms of, for those who make it to Wikipedia, what are they actually looking for? And on that front, I want to share two main insights. One is that we did develop a taxonomy of why readers come to Wikipedia. So we hand-coded free-form responses of a questionnaire. And the most important aspects that came out of that were around motivation. So whether it's a school or school project or around current events, and the information need, whether it's a fact check or in-depth. We went further and then put numbers on these use cases by actually running large-scale surveys on Wiki. And for that, we used a tool called Quick Survey, and that allowed us to actually show these little banners that you see here on Wiki in order to invite readers to take the survey while they're actually reading Wikipedia articles. And what we found, I want to highlight, is that readers come for all kinds of reasons. There's really not one dominating use case, but the most common use case is intrinsic learning. However, there's really, what we also saw is that there's substantial variation around countries. For example, we found that countries with lower human development index, that in those countries, readers are much more likely to look for in-depth information. With these same surveys, we actually were also able to get a sense of the demographics of our readers. And overall, what we found is our readers are very young. Almost half of them are under 30 years old. They're very highly educated. And actually, we found that there's a big gender gap for readers, so that 66%, roughly 66% of readers identified as men in those surveys. And the importance of this finding can actually not be understated, because it means we have, for the gender gap, for example, we have long known gender gaps in content and among our contributors. But here we've shown that already on the level of readers, we find similar gaps. And it suggests that these gaps propagate along what we call a pipeline of online participation. So that already the readers who are reaching Wikipedia are not representative of the population as a whole, or even the population of internet users. And that leads to downstream biases in who becomes an editor, and in turn, the content that is reflected on the site. One advantage of having run several instances of these surveys is that we can actually identify demographic trends over time. And overall, young readers constitute the largest age groups, which is really encouraging for the future. However, we do see some individual countries where there's really a substantial decrease of younger readers. And that is in French, in Spanish, but most dramatically, perhaps in German Wikipedia, where the fraction of readers between 18 and 24 dropped from 30 to only 8% within 5 years. Yes. With that, I want to come to, we have also obtained a pretty good, or like about the question how readers interact with our content. And for that, we have obtained actually a very good picture of what they are reading and how they are interacting with the site. Considering interactions with a single page, we know that the topic they are searching for actually strongly depends on the time of the day. So we've seen that STEM topics are highly searched in working hours versus topics around media, such as entertainment, in evening hours, highlighting these varying information needs of different readers. From research on mobile web users, we know that reading is actually quite short and very focused. So dwell time, the time spent reading, is only 25 seconds. And the majority of readers only look at the leading paragraph. And at the same time, they interact with different aspects of an article, such as images. Interaction, we've been able to measure, and interaction is quite high. 1 out of 30 page views results in interaction with an image, whereas interaction with citation is much lower, is around 10 times lower, with 1 out of 300 page views. Looking beyond a single page view, we also learned about how readers are navigating Wikipedia. And when looking at these reading sessions, we actually found that the majority of reading sessions consists of only a single page view. And one perhaps surprising finding is when readers do navigate several articles in their reading sessions, it is surprisingly common that they don't use the blue links, but they actually go to an external search engine and use the external search engine to navigate to another article, even if in many cases the corresponding blue link exists on their first site. While longer reading sessions are rare in number of, like in a fraction of reading sessions, they still amount to millions of readers engaging in sessions with 10 or more page views. And we kind of looked at what are factors where people get into these so-called rabbit holes. And that often happens when readers look at navigational links and info boxes associated with recurring events, for example, or specific topics like entertainment, sports, politics, or history. And just mentioning that we also found uncovered different curiosity styles, how people explore the network of Wikipedia content. We also looked, going beyond the reader interactions, we looked at the content itself, and we identified major barriers for readers when they interact with the content. And just mentioning two of them, one of them is, I would describe as discoverability or lack of discoverability related to orphan articles. And orphan articles are articles that cannot be reached they don't have any incoming links, and they cannot be reached by internal navigation. So you can find them through search or when you know exactly that's the article, but just navigating through Wikipedia, you will never find them. And the surprising finding was that there's almost 9 million articles in all Wikipedias are orphans. That's roughly 15 or it's more than 15% of all the content. And that is an issue that applies to all Wikipedias, some more and some less, but it's really across all Wikipedias. There's a substantial fraction of these articles. And the second main barrier we found is around readability, meaning that articles are written at a reading level that we have to consider is too difficult considering the average adult reading ability. To give one example, in English Wikipedia, 58% of articles are written above grade level 9, reading level 9, Flash Kincaid level 9, and that is above the average reading ability of adults in the US, which is estimated at reading level 7 to 8. So that means readers are not able to interact with content that is already existing on the site. The last point I then want to raise is finally just the question whether we can actually do anything about this. Do communities have any levers to increase readership? And using natural experiments, we were actually able to establish causal evidence that improving the quality of content leads to more page views to articles. And it's really important to stress here that this is not just correlations, but the causal evidence is crucial because it helps us identify actionable opportunities for interventions. And the two examples I want to describe here, mention here, is one is again around orphan articles. And we actually showed that if editors add incoming links to an orphan article, so the orphan article gets de-orphanized, on average, these articles will receive 10% increase in page views in the future. And this is a significant and sustained effect over several months, and it comes from readers actually using these blue links. And a similar evidence comes from a study outside of the research team. I want to highlight it nevertheless, since it won Wikimedia Research Award of the Year in 2021. And they looked at articles that were improved as part of the Wiki Education campaign. And those articles received, on average, 12% more page views. Again, this was a sustained effect, and it even had spillover effects to articles linked downstream. So overall, there's really robust evidence that improving the content, we are actually able to, or editors or Wikimedia movement can really increase readership. And I think I'll stop here for now. From what I understand, we have a Q&A, a short Q&A session before we proceed to the next part of the presentation. I think I stopped sharing my slides so we can better engage.
All right. So we have 4 questions so far in the YouTube channel. I'm going to go through them in sequential order of the order they were asked through the slides. So the first question was about Google AI overviews. And so the question is, has traffic from Google declined ever since AI overviews were introduced in Google search in 2024?
I can try to answer it. I think I don't, from what I know, what I've seen from the numbers, that traffic has not, there's no dramatic decrease or sudden decrease in the number of page views. We do see that page views are not increasing since then. And that is given that internet usage overall is increasing around the world. The fact that Wikipedia page views are not increasing in this at a similar rate might be a matter for concern. But I think that there's some studies that try to look at that, but I think it's not clear the conclusion what is the exact effect of AI overviews on traffic to Wikipedia. That is my understanding, but definitely something we want to get a better understanding, and we'll talk about this, I think, in later slides about planned future research.
All right. The next question is about the gender gap of readers. And so the question is about whether there's a gender, whether the gender gap varies by country, whether that's something we've looked at.
Leila, do you want to comment on that, since I think you were...
Yeah, and it is totally fine if you go ahead as well. I'll comment now that I'm unmuted. So we have past research that shows how gender gap changes in different Wikipedia languages. So we have looked at 14 different Wikipedia languages, and we understand that better. There's, of course, some correlation between the languages and geographical boundaries, but the notion of country is something that we are less by default going to. So I encourage you to look at the paper, Why the World Reads Wikipedia, and in there you can find specific stats about how the gender gap was captured across the different Wikipedia languages.
All right. The next question was about the topic of going down rabbit holes. So the question is, has anyone researched if Wikipedia categories can send users down rabbit holes?
I can answer. I can try to answer, but I don't. I think it's a really good question. I don't have. I think the answer is we don't know. For the studies we have conducted as part of this research, we typically restricted ourselves to navigation in main namespace, like in content, among content articles, just because to simplify the problem or scope the problem. How categories play a role, it's an interesting question. I don't know if they have anecdotal evidence about categories being triggers for that. I'd be interested to learn more.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the person who asked that question has more you want to share on that in the chat. We could continue the discussion on that later. Okay, yeah, they said that for themselves, categories are the central rabbit hole door. So yeah, that's interesting. All right, and then there was one other question, which is a really big picture question, which might stump us a bit, but the question is, how does the research team envision a Wikipedia website of the future that uses all this research and has improved the reader experience.
I propose that maybe, Deborah, we take this as we look at the future towards the end of the showcase.
Okay, yeah, so I think that's a good point. We'll be talking in the next part of this presentation about currently happening research and research planned for the future. So that can help get at that. Okay, so I think that with that, we can move on to the next part of the presentation.
All right, I'll continue where I left off. I hope you can see my slides again. Yes. Got it. So the research I mentioned, I described, and there's a lot more depth and detail in the papers, but I hope what I could convey is that really substantial body of research has given us a strong foundation to embrace challenges we are facing. Some of those were already mentioned in the Q&A. And Wikimedia movement, or internet as a whole, is going through significant changes, or that ecosystem in which Wikipedia is operating in. Just mentioning a few of these is generative AI has significantly reduced the cost of content generation, while cost of verifiability remains high. Readers online, they do care about the accuracy and quality of information and demand more from platforms, while at the same time their trust in information online is declining. The widespread availability of LLMs, in that context, the intermediation, for example, with AI overviews, continues to pose an even bigger challenge to not just Wikipedia, but knowledge commons platforms. Competition for AI innovation has created significant burden on the infrastructure of knowledge commons, and technical efforts for improving search and discovery experiences through natural language search have improved significantly. These are just some of the changes that are happening, I think, at the moment. To respond to these changes, we have already started multiple lines of new research, and I pass it to my colleague Mike to share about one of those. Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Martin. Can we go to thank you. Yeah, so my name is Mike. I'm also on the research team with Martin and Layla and Deborah. And yeah, I'm going to be talking about some work that is underway right now, both work that we've accomplished over the past couple of months and a couple of efforts that are either underway right now or that we're looking towards in the next couple of months. Next slide, please. So we heard from Martin about the use case taxonomy for Wikipedia readers that was elaborated in 2017 to 2018. This taxonomy was articulated or elaborated along 3 different dimensions that describe a use case as experienced by readers when they come to Wikipedia. The first and most important of these dimensions was the reader's motivation. So when asked essentially when they were on an article, what brought them to the article, readers responded in closed and then, or open and then closed-ended ways to this question. Yeah, what brought you to this Wikipedia article? What was the precipitating event in this reader's life that brought them here? And we've heard that there was a range of motivations from, I read about this in a piece of media, it came up in conversation, I'm working on a school or work assignment, etc. The other dimensions that were collected at the time included information need. So were the readers looking for a broad overview, a quick fact, an in-depth understanding, and then prior knowledge about the topic as well, like how familiar are you with the topic? Next slide, please. Well, it is 2025 now, and as Martin mentioned, there have been a number of changes both within the movement and in the broader internet landscape. There have been changes to Wikipedia itself in terms of the contributor and the readership, changes more broadly in terms of how people on the internet access and produce and seek out knowledge. And there have been a number of kind of accumulated insights coming out of efforts by the Foundation's research team over the past couple of years. For example, this use case taxonomy that we saw in the previous slide, that's been used in the 2023 and 2024 global readers survey that is issued annually by the research team. And kind of interestingly, the frequency at which people select I'm working on a school assignment has fallen since this work was originally done in 2017. So we've seen some changes in terms of the use cases. And internally, we have been in consultation with our colleagues who, in the product and technology department, who kind of work on and make and design and produce the tools and the interfaces that are intended for readers to use when they're on Wikipedia. And so we've been asking them, what kinds of interventions, products are you thinking about deploying for readers? And what kind of information would you need to design and prioritize these new information or these new interventions? And what we heard is that there's a need, there continues to be a need for this way of understanding and classifying reader use cases, but that there is, at this point, an unmet need for understanding these reading sessions or reading use cases in a way that is oriented around behaviors or maybe like the actions that readers are taking when they're on Wikipedia, actions that can then theoretically be associated with some of the metrics that we might have access to. And we're also aware that there's a need for kind of a way of classifying these use cases or reading sessions in which the sessions themselves are mutually exclusive, they're descriptive of what the users are doing on site, and so on. Next slide, please. And so that brings us to this research project that we are in the middle of right now. At a very high level, we're trying to address three broad questions. The first being, why do readers come to Wikipedia? Involved in this is our revisiting of the 2018 use case taxonomy. We're also trying to address questions around whether or not different kinds of readers have different kinds of Wikipedia use cases, whether different types of sessions are associated with different demographic categories, different behaviors that we can observe, and so on. And thirdly, we are interested in understanding better where Wikipedia fits in the information landscape of 2025, where are our engaged readers going when they're not going to Wikipedia, what are the different things that they think Wikipedia does well versus doesn't do well, engaged versus non-engaged readers, alternative information platforms that people have access to, and how is all of this related to the degree or the extent to which people trust Wikipedia and its contributors and its content, the information that they get there, and so on. Next slide, please. So far, we have done some work in the direction of addressing at least the first of those questions, which entails revisiting the 2018 use case taxonomy. A couple of months ago, we sent out a series of surveys, open-ended surveys to Wikipedia readers, and we got around 2,800 or so responses back. These were from English Wikipedia. And respondents saw artifacts or interfaces that look somewhat like what we're seeing on the right side of the screen. We asked them a couple of open-ended questions. What are you looking for today? Why are you looking for that? How are you going to use what you learned, if at all? And we also asked them, we were interested if these people, these respondents, had in mind a specific question or a specific fact that they were looking for. Were they able to articulate a specific thing that they were looking for on the article or during the session at which they saw the invitation to participate in this survey? Next slide, please. And when we started looking at those responses and going through those responses, one of the first things that struck us was this concept of like the specific fact or question that might be in someone's mind. We were immediately struck by the fact that people were articulating their questions in very different ways. Some people, when we asked them do you have a specific question? They kind of responded in a way where we were given back something that kind of looked like a question. It was articulated as a question. The answer to it was a discrete piece of information. Yes, I want to know what kind of pasta is used in Italian wedding soup. It's a single piece of information, probably found within a single sentence in a single article. Okay, it looks like a question. We also heard from a lot of people, though, who would tell us, like, yeah, I am here, I'm trying to answer a very specific question. My question is the origin of pomegranates. Or my question is, I came to get more info about George Lucas. So we started to notice that, like, the ways that people were talking about their own use sessions tended to be pretty diverse. And that was something that we were keeping in mind as we went in further in this process of attempting to impose a kind of almost like behaviorally oriented classification. At this point, we're working with 3 different dimensions within this framework that we're trying to elaborate. The first, and I guess topmost, being information goal. Is it open-ended or closed-ended? So open-ended being a curiosity. I'm here because I have almost a nebulous interest or an open-ended interest in a topic, but I don't necessarily plan to take any actions on the basis of what I learned. Versus if you are engaged in a task, you come to Wikipedia because you are in search of a specific piece of information or pieces of information that you intend to take elsewhere and put to some sort of use off of Wikipedia. So that's kind of the high level division that we're working with at this point. We also think that there is some value in classifying things or sessions in terms of complexity. Are you looking for a specific piece of information? Can your session be concluded successfully when you find a discrete piece of information like the type of pasta in Italian wedding soup? Or is it more complex? Does your information live in multiple sections within an article? Does it live across multiple articles? Or are you reading until you have been satisfied, but you're not necessarily able to articulate when that might be? And finally, the third one that emerged for us was this idea of persistence of interest. Basically, is this the first time that you've looked at this topic on Wikipedia, or do you often find yourself on Wikipedia engaging with this or a related network of topics? And we think that persistence of interest may be related to other factors inherent to someone's relationship with Wikipedia that of themselves may be of relevance to questions of product development and design. Next slide, please. So when we put all those together, this is kind of what we're looking at this point, essentially a way of classifying our use cases. And you can see these different variables, they combine into, at this point, 8 different possible combinations. And these are scenarios that kind of emerged out of our earlier open-ended survey effort. Just as an example, we're proposing that, for example, when you're watching a movie starring Pee Wee Herman and you want to specifically know the years that he was on TV, you've never thought about Pee Wee Herman before, that this particular use case in which you are satisfied by a discrete piece of information in an info box is different than, for example, a more complex task. For example, we had someone telling us that they saw a Subaru car drive by. They didn't know if it was a Subaru WRX or Subaru BRZ. They are on Wikipedia to figure out how to tell them apart specifically to prepare for the next time that this happens. And to address that task, you would need to go to 2 different articles. You'd need to compare visual, textual information. It's a little more complicated to do that. And you want to apply it to something off of Wikipedia. So this is more or less kind of a rough version of the framework that we're working with at this point. Next slide, please. At this point, we've taken in a lot of open-ended survey responses. We're working on elaborating a framework. We saw a version of it on the last slide. And there are a couple of other, I guess, ongoing strands or threads of this research project. Right now, we're in the middle of something that we're calling a video diary study. We have recruited very frequent Wikipedia readers and instructed them that, every time over the next week, or I think it's 10 days that you visit Wikipedia, you find yourself visiting Wikipedia, screen and voice record yourself doing the visit, then answer a couple of questions at the end of the visit. We're doing this to essentially kind of like qualitatively explore this framework of use cases or reading sessions that we're working with. We are trying to illustrate those use cases, get a better understanding of how they differentiate from each other, understand how they look from the perspective of people who are engaging in them, and hopefully get some information around information relevant to other product development issues, internal and external searches, how people navigate, challenges that might be associated with different use cases, and so on. The two screenshots you see on the right of the screen here are from a recent session. One of the participants had recently created an animated character, and they wanted to know, should I patent this character? They tried a couple of keyword searches on Wikipedia, and the search results were not perceived as particularly relevant to this question. So this individual navigated out of Wikipedia, they went to Google, they tried the Google query, do you need to patent a character, design Wikipedia? So for the first time in this session, deploying a more natural language or semantic search query. And they were served back an AI overview with a clear answer. And the very first search result was the exact Wikipedia article that they were looking for. They clicked through, they read the article, or read in the article, they were satisfied, the session was over. So that's an example of the kind of artifact that we're looking to get out of this diary study to help us flesh out this understanding of reading sessions. Next slide, please. And coming up, we plan to deploy a couple of other large survey efforts, a shorter one deployed on Wikipedia in the quick survey tool that we heard a little bit about from Martin. It'll just be a series of questions that you tap your way through. You never leave the article that you're on. And we're hoping through this to kind of get a sense of the distribution or the frequency of the different use cases that we believe exist. And hopefully associate those with other types of metrics or variables that we can associate with the reading sessions, dwell time, number of pages visited, and hopefully some demographic characteristics of the respondents who participate. And we'll follow this up with a much larger survey or much longer survey. People will have to click out to an external platform. And here we hope to explore in more depth the relationship between people's relationships with Wikipedia, their use of alternative information platforms, dimensions of trust in Wikipedia, perceptions of AI content, and so on. And this is also intended to be help us get some more insight into the role that engagement with Wikipedia plays in mediating these behaviors that we're seeing on site. Next slide, please. So that was basically an overview of the Reader's foundational research that is underway.
Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing some of the ongoing research in this space, and earlier to Martin for sharing with us, some of the key findings from the decade-long research on Wikipedia. So now I'm going to talk with you about looking to the future. What do we expect to be the primary areas that we as a team at the Wikimedia Foundation are going to primarily focus on as we think about the future of readership and reader research? Next slide, please. Part of the reason that we're happy to share these with you is that, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, this work is not possible without working with the broader research community and scientific community and the practitioners that are around Wikipedia and Wikimedia ecosystem. So what we're hoping to do is, by sharing with you some of our primary areas of focus for the coming few years, we also hear from you whether you have interest to collaborate with us on these fronts, or you would like to independently do areas of research that are related to these areas. There are 5 primary areas of research that I would like to call out here that I would expect that we invest in relatively substantially in the coming couple of years. One is around the progression in readership. What makes Wikipedia special as a project is not so much the content of the project, but the editors in the project. This is the most unique value proposition of Wikipedia, in which there are humans that write this encyclopedia, and anyone can edit the encyclopedia. As we think about readership and readers of Wikipedia, of course, it is important to think about what they learn from the project, but there's also always important to ask the question, when is the time or what is the mechanism for which a reader can become an editor? And we're interested in understanding the progressions of readers and on the project within the readership space, as well as moving from becoming a reader to an editor. The second topic that we're interested in is around discoverability of content. And Mike talked about this relatively extensively about like some of the foundational work we're doing right now to be able to have more informed recommendations around what can be investments that we do in the areas of discoverability of content. The plain fact is that there's tremendous amount of knowledge on Wikipedia, not only on the article pages, but also on the deliberations of editors for creating these pages, arriving at consensus, having disagreements, disputing, resolving things, and the whole process. There's a lot to discover in. The question that we face as a research team is to find out what are the unique value propositions that we can offer in terms of discovering on Wikipedia, because there are also other platforms outside of Wikipedia that are offering other ways of search and discovery on through Wikipedia. The third area of focus for us is going to be on the question of bot versus human traffic. As Martin shared earlier, one of the challenges for many knowledge commons platform, but I would say particularly Wikipedia and Wikimedia projects in this moment in time, is that the competition for AI innovation means that there is a lot of extraction of data and knowledge from the commons, including Wikipedia. And that means that we need to be able to separate bot traffic from human traffic in order to be able to make decisions that make sense given our resources and what is available to us. So as a research team, we expect to be involved, continue to be involved in some of the work that is happening around like bot and human traffic separation with a variety of applications that may exist for that. The fourth area is the impact of large language models on Wikipedia and its readership. Again, this may eventually be very similar to the past, in which there are benefits and there are, of course, like drawbacks. But as a research team, what we're interested in is encouraging and also investing some time to understand what is the impact of these large language models on the project, and particularly with a lens on readership. And lastly, we expect to invest in control experiments more in the coming years, because we need to understand how we can drive change on the readership front. And Martin already shared a couple of natural experiments that have been done as part of research work, whether in the Wikimedia Foundation or outside of the Wikimedia Foundation, that have helped us understand how can we actually change readership trends. However, over the past 10 years, there are 2 of those. What is demanded of us in this environment is being able to test more frequently and understand what can drive readership change, again, through research and experimentation. Next slide, please. I think I'm going to do a wrap for this presentation here, and then we're going to move to the second part of Q&A. We hope that this presentation has given you an overview of what we have learned, maybe some of the key findings in the space of readerships and readers of Wikipedia over the past decade. You had a chance to look at part of the ongoing work that is happening right now and get a better sense of where is our mind right now and what are the areas that we're day in and day out thinking about. Understand kind of our understanding of the environment and what do we see as risks and opportunities for Wikipedia and its readership, and how we are positioning our thinking around it, and how we think about the coming couple of years in terms of the time that we spend for research and experimentation on the readers and readership front. If you're interested to likely stay in touch on these topics, twice a year, we write research reports that come out in June and December. So you can, eyeball the next research report that is going to come out in December and learn more about what we have been busy with on this front. You're, of course, welcome to reach out and ask a question on the public mailing list for the research community, which is Wiki Research L. We will engage with you there. If you require or need a more kind of one-on-one and private conversation, we offer bookable one-on-one office hours, and you're welcome to reach out to Mike, Martin, myself, or other members of the research team who are working in the research space. The link to that is there. With that, I want to also thank everyone who supported us behind the scenes for making this presentation happen. Yuming, Deborah, Diego, and Kinneret, and other people who have been involved, and then open it to your questions. Thank you.
All right. So for questions, I'm still keeping an eye on if there's additional questions to be added. You can still add them now. We had one comment that had come up during this section, which was in reference to the slide about what's changed in the internet landscape. So a comment about how another key change is users shift from searching for sources to demanding answers. So yeah, a shift sort of related to the shifts with LLMs as part of the landscape. There were also questions that were answered in the chat, and so I can just repeat those here. There had been a question about whether there are any plans to do the same survey on other Wikimedia projects for comparison, and in particular Commons and Wikidata. Yuming answered in the chat about how we're working on updates to the quick survey tool that would enable that. Right now it's a survey tool challenge of about how surveys can be triggered. There was another question about if there's a preprint available for this research. I answered that in the chat of how this research is still in progress, so there isn't findings published yet, but I shared the link to the meta page for the project where the results will be published when they're available. So far, I'm not seeing other questions in the chat, but I will keep an eye for if there's any others that get added in the next minute or so. Leila.
Deborah, I have a question thank you for relaying what is happening on the chat, and thank you so much for asking the questions, everyone, and engaging with the questions and answering them. I have one follow-up for the person who asked about, who made the comment about search of sources, basically changing to, if I understood correctly, search for immediate contents or insights. Was that the first comment that you made, Deborah?
The first comment was about how like another key shift in their mind is the change in users wanting sources to wanting answers. Was the way that they put it.
Yeah. Perfect. If I can ask, and if this is already shared, I'll look in the chat, but the person who asked this, if you can provide a reference for this, that would be great. I would like to learn more about what is this change that you're talking about. I understand it at a high level, what you mean, but if there's a reference, I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I think we had one question from the first part of the presentation where we moved towards the end. Deborah, do you want to surface that question back?
Sure, yeah. So the question was about whether the research team has vision of what, how do we envision a Wikipedia website of the future that uses all these research and insights and has improved the reader experience. So yeah, what do we see as the ways in which we could improve the reader experience or the Wikipedia we envision?
I'm happy to kick us off, but I think I invite everyone. This is a conversation, and it's about like what each of us imagine as a future. So I invite everyone on this call to also chime in. I think there's one thing that is relatively clear to me, that in terms of discoverability of knowledge that exists on Wikipedia, we have a unique opportunity to serve the readers and readership. How this will manifest itself eventually in terms of experience for the readers is primarily a product decision. And when where we sit in the research team, I see our role as doing research and experimentation to understand what kind of recommendations we can give, sometimes with our colleagues in the design team, sometimes in the research team, kind of in solo, depending on the applications that we're looking at. But I think search and discoverability is something that we're seeing from the research that Mike and Yuming are working on right now, that is like people are actually seeking more specific knowledge or ways of slicing and filtering and looking for things in more nuanced ways. So I would expect that the future of Wikipedia to have a different search and discovery experience than today. But again, like what is the shape and form of that, and what are the affordances, I think, to be determined. One thing I do want to call out kind of more specifically is that our role as a research team is to do research and experimentation. And I am personally hesitant to envision a Wikipedia in a certain way, partly because it's outside of the scope of my expertise, to envision a product and a set of features that come around it. But I do think the research and experimentation is the mandate heavily of this team and this group of people and the folks who work with us. And I think that's an area that we have had some of the bigger challenges in terms of actually doing experimentation on Wikipedia. So I think that is an important thing to call out, which is within our mandate as a team to do research and experimentation. And if experimentation is hard, that means change is just going to be slower, because the rate at which we arrive at insights is just much slower. So that I also want to call out that, if we want to envision a different Wikipedia, we need to be able to experiment to know what is actually the right thing, because there's a lot that changes on a daily and weekly basis. And we can't go at a rate of 2 experiments per decade if we want to have changes. Again, these are just research experiments. There are more experiments happening on the product end.
We don't have any more questions. I'm happy to close this off. I'll just look one last look at the chat, and I see there's nothing there. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this Wikimedia Research Showcase and participating in the discussions we had about readers and readership. I especially want to thank the entire WMF research team and also the collaborators as mentioned, and a special shout out to our speakers, Martin, Mike, and Leila, for this presentation. The Wikimedia Research Showcase is also made possible thanks to the coordination team with my colleagues Diego and Deborah. And Deborah, thank you also for moderating the Q&A today. And again, special thanks to Leila for her support with this specific showcase. We hope to see you all back here for another research showcase in October, which is actually celebrating 13 years of Wikidata. So we're looking forward to explore that project a little bit more in depth next time. Thank you all for joining. Okay, we're back.
Great.